I think I may already be on. I'm not sure. This new interface makes it hard to tell at first whether the video is actually live or not. Oh, there we go. Huzzah! Greetings all! It is I, Mr. Aaron, returning to you once again for some more story awesomeness. Now, our current story is Geronimo Stilton, the Treasure of Easter Island. Now, you may recall, last time, Geronimo received a very stinky letter from his sister Thea. It said that she was searching for a buried treasure on Easter Island, and if he didn't hear from her, hi guys! That if he didn't hear from her before he received the letter, that he should come to Easter Island because she might be in danger. And so Geronimo Stilton and his friends Wild Willie and Susie and Trap, they all went down to Easter Island, and they had just landed on Easter Island, and they were getting ready to go search for Thea, and their guide, Vitea, had just taken them to grab some food. And a performance was about to start at the place they were getting food, so that is where we are picking up today. The lights dimmed. Many young rodents appeared on the stage and began to sing. The musicians played ukuleles and drums, and a few people began to dance. Their movements mimicked the daily activities of the Rapa Nui people, including swimming, fishing, and rowing a boat. Then they danced a ritual dance, showing warriors intimidating their enemies. Finally, they concluded with a dance in which a fisher mouse and a maiden declared their love for each other. It was truly fabumouse. Susie snapped a lot of photos. We'll leave here with lots of very interesting material for the Rodents Gazette. Thea will be very happy with my work. Hearing Thea's name brought me back to reality. We were here on a mission. Where was my sister Thea? And was she in danger? We had to find out soon. Go. The next morning, we gathered to decide what to do next. Wild Willie reread the riddle on the map. Find the biggest Ahu and its 15 protectors. Turn west, search for the great water that is and isn't. At the end of the day, follow the sun and you'll find the 7 young explorers. Take 7 gigantic steps to the right, 3 warrior steps to the left, and 1 baby step forward. The sigh of the wind will take you far away to the big black bubble. There, the sea hides an ancient secret, the treasure of Easter Island. The first thing we need to do is find an Ahu, he concluded. In fact, we need to find the biggest one on the island. I checked my Easter Island guidebook. The Ahu are stone platforms that were used as burial sites by the ancient inhabitants of Easter Island, I explained. At that moment, Vitea came in. Perfect timing, Susie squeaked. We were just about where we'd like to go, talking about where we'd like to go first. We'd like to see some of the island's Ahu. Can you tell us which one is the biggest? That would be Ahu Tangariki, Vitea replied with a smile. It's one of the most spectacular places on the island. When we got to Ahu Tangariki, the most majestic sight awaited us. The enormous statues lined the shore, their backs to the ocean waves. Vitea explained that the statues, called moai, were built to guard and protect the island. Get your camera ready, Susie. Oh, I totally did the wrong voice. Get your camera ready, Susie, Trap shouted as he ran toward a moai. I'm going to climb to the top. "Stop!" Vaitia squeaked in dismay. "You can't climb a moai. Please, you shouldn't even touch it. This is my ancestors' sacred burial ground." Susie grabbed Trap by the tail a second before he began to climb. "What do you think you're doing?" she scolded him. During this whole mess, I was busy counting the moai on the stone platforms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13, 14, 15, I counted. These are the 15 protectors the riddle talks about. We figured out the first clue. "Now we have to turn west and find the Great Water," whispered Wild Willie, "but I don't understand why it is and isn't. What do you think that means?" Searching for the Great Water. We headed west with Vaitia, but we didn't see even a drop of water anywhere. "Is there any water on Easter Island?" Susie asked her. "I haven't seen any so far." "Well, there is and isn't much water on the island," Vaitia replied mysteriously. "There are 3 crater lakes, but during the dry season there isn't much water in them. During the rainy season, though, well, that's another story." My tail twisted with excitement. Vaitia had referred to the water that is and isn't. "Is one of these crater lakes near here?" I asked eagerly. She nodded and motioned for us to follow her up a steep path. We turned a corner, and there before us was a rocky crater etched deep into the ground. There is... Excuse me. This is where the Great Water flows, when there is any. Seven young explorers. Wild Willie smiled with satisfaction and immediately checked the map. "The map says, at the end of the day, follow the sun," he said. "So we should head west, since that's where the sun sets." I scratched my snout. "Yes, but what are the 7 young explorers?" We got back in Vaitia's SUV and headed toward the western shore of the island. As we mused over the riddle, we were quiet as mice. Night had already fallen, and Vaitia stared at the dark sky. A silvery moon shone brightly. "In the olden days, it was precisely on nights like these that our ancestors performed sacred ceremonies near the moai by the sea," she told us. "Those ceremonies recalled the ancient traditions of Polynesia, which is where my courageous forefathers came from when they explored this new land." It all sounded very, very familiar, but where had I heard it before? Vaitia's words kept turning over and over in my head. Then suddenly, it was like a light bulb went off. I had read those words before in my travel guide. I leafed through it until I found what I was looking for. "Listen to this," I told the others, reading from the book. "Most of the moai on Easter Island look inward with their backs to the sea, but there is one group of 7 moai that look toward the sea." I turned toward Vaitia eagerly. "Do you know where these 7 moai are?" "Of course," she replied immediately. "They are at Ahu Akevi. I can take you there right now if you wish. They represent the 7 young explorers who left Polynesia to look for new land and finally reached Easter Island." Susie, Trap, Wild Willie, and I exchanged a look. We had solved the next clue. Vaitia turned the SUV onto a long dirt road full of potholes. Then we came to a stop in a clearing. We quickly climbed out, eager with excitement. The 4 of us ran toward the summit of the small hill. At the top of the hill was a platform with 7 moai standing in a row. The full moon bathed them with a silvery light, surrounding them with a halo of mystery. "These must be the 7 young explorers," whispered Susie. The Sigh of the Wind. Vaitia noticed me and Susie whispering. She studied us closely with her bright eyes. "Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think you've told me the truth about why you're here," she began. "I have a feeling you're not simply tourists." I looked at my friends. I was more than happy to tell Vaitia the truth, but I wasn't sure what they were thinking. Susie smiled. "It's okay with me if we tell her," she said. "I trust Vaitia." Wild Willie nodded. "Me too." "Humph," Trap squeaked. "Well, I don't want to tell her. I don't want to share the treasure with anyone." Susie gave Trap a stern look. "Aren't you ashamed of being so greedy?" she asked. "We're searching for Thea, not the treasure." "You might be searching for Thea, but I'm looking for the treasure," Trap admitted with a shrug. He didn't seem ashamed at all. The two of them began squabbling. Wild Willie had to pull them apart. 3-1, Wild Willie told Trap. "The majority wins. Geronimo, explain everything to Vaitia." "My sister Thea came here in search of treasure, but she's gone missing," I told Vaitia. "She never returned home to New Mouse City, so now we're looking for the same treasure in the hopes of finding her." Vaitia thought it over. "I'll help," she offered. Meanwhile, Trap was busy following the directions on the map. He had run in front of the 7 moai and began counting in a loud voice. Oh! Give me just a second, guys. My computer just gave me your battery is low signal. I need to plug it in. I thought I had more juice than that. There we go. Now there is no danger of my suddenly disappearing in the middle of the story. So, let's see here. Trap was busy following the directions on the map. He had run in front of the 7 moai and began counting in a loud voice. "Okay," he squeaked. "The map says to take 7 gigantic steps to the right, 3 warrior steps to the left, and 1 baby step forward." He had just taken the baby step when his paw landed on something that looked like a plain old rock. But it wasn't a rock. It was a hole. With a yelp, Trap fell down into it. Down, down, down. We ran toward the hole, but it was too late. My cousin had disappeared. Wild Willie twirled his whiskers thoughtfully. "The riddle did say the sigh of the wind will take you far away," he said. "We've got to do something," Susie squeaked. "Are you ready for an adventure?" Wild Willie shouted. "If you are, follow me." He held out his paw to Susie, who held out her paw to me. In turn, I held out my paw to Vaitia. A moment later, Wild Willie jumped into the hole, taking the rest of us with him. Moldy mozzarella, how do I get myself into these messes? The Big Black Bubble. We found ourselves inside a damp, dark underground tunnel. I was terrified. I couldn't see a whisker. What's more, there was a continuous rustling noise, as if a gigantic creature was lying there breathing in the dark. I let out a shriek of terror as we plummeted deeper and deeper into the underground passageway. We seemed to be traveling to the center of the earth. A moment later, I was no longer sliding down the tunnel. I was floating in the air. The sigh of the wind was carrying us along. We floated along in the tunnel for a long time. Then, instead of descending farther, we began to rise until the wind finally deposited us on firm ground. Trap had already emerged, and was rubbing his bruised tail. Wild Willie bounded out, but his hat remained floating in mid-air, as if on top of an invisible fountain. Willie grabbed it quickly and put it back on his head. I glanced around me and made sure everyone was okay. "Trap, Susie, Wild Willie, Vaitia, and me," I squeaked. "Oh, all here." I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I looked around, taking in my surroundings. We found ourselves inside an enormous cave with a rounded ceiling. It looked like a big, dark bubble. There was a saltwater lagoon in the middle of the cave. I gently touched the wall. It was dark, porous, volcanic rock. "The big black bubble," whispered Susie. "We found it!" "This is where the treasure is!" Trap squeaked with excitement. Susie turned to him, an angry look on her snout. "No, this is where we might find Thea," she corrected him. "How can you only think of the treasure? You should be ashamed of yourself." Meanwhile, Wild Willie examined the map. "I checked our direction with a compass while we were traveling on the Sigh of the Wind," he whispered. "We traveled underground in a southwest direction." "That means we're now right under the Ranukau crater," Vaitia added. "We're in the heart of a volcano, and this must be a secret underground lagoon. I've never seen it on any map, and I've been a guide on this island since I was a tiny mouselet." Pirates in the Night. As they were talking, Susie snapped some photos of Wild Willie checking the map. The camera's flash lit the rocks behind us. At the same time, Trap sneezed. The sound bounced off of the surrounding walls, echoing loudly. Choo! 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 A second later, we heard a squeak. We weren't alone in the cave, and the flash of the camera and the echo of the sneeze had revealed our presence to whoever else was there. Wild Willie motioned for us to keep quiet. Then he scampered behind some rocks and squatted down. We immediately followed his example. A moment later, we heard an unfriendly voice. "Search there, at the end of the cave," the voice commanded. "And if you find anyone, bring 'em to me." "Maybe somebody came looking for that nosy little mouse and the professor," another voice replied. I shivered. Was that nosy mouse my sister Thea? But who was the professor? "Let's get back to the ship," the first voice yelled. "We have to finish loading the treasure. We'll leave tonight." "Yes, Captain," the other rodent replied. "But what are we going to do with all prisoners? They know everything. We can't leave them here." My whiskers trembled with fear. "I'll figure it out later," grumbled the captain. "Now let's go. Get the prisoners." "And bring them to the ship. They may still be useful." Someone was coming toward us, but Wild Willie signaled us to follow him quietly. Afraid of being seen, we slithered across the cave floor on our elbows until we reached the shore of the lagoon, where we saw a giant pirate ship. The ship had a slim shape and a huge sail to better cruise the waves. It was completely black, including the sails, and I could see its name on the side. Phantom of the Night. Susie pointed to something hanging from the tip of a rock high above us. It was a giant cage. Inside was my sister Thea and Professor von Dustyfur, a famous archaeologist who specializes in ancient treasures. The short, round pirate moved toward the cage. I was about to run over to save my sister and the professor when Wild Willie grabbed me by the tail. "Wait," he whispered. "Just be quiet. Let's see what happens." And that is where we are going to leave off for today, guys. So, when we pick up tomorrow, we will indeed see what happens. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to go tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. when we'll be continuing with the story of Geronimo Stilton and the treasure of Easter Island. Don't forget to check out our other live programs, Toddler Time with Miss Becky, Stories with Sunny, and Creating with Constance. Don't forget also, the libraries are open to the public once again, but you can still get curbside service if you prefer, and you can still access plenty of awesome digital content through our online content services at sweetwaterlibraries.com. That's all I've got for you today, guys, so we'll see you tomorrow.